Well, hello, that's me again, and I'm getting better in terms of my health. Still a little bit under this COVID flu thing, whatever it is. Just let cut the crap. I mean, COVID-19 is a flu, okay? So I'm having a flu, So, but I'm getting better. But please forgive me. I apologize in advance for sniff and cough here and there. So it's just the way it is, nature of the beast. But I'm feeling much better, and especially on the eve of the May 9th Victory Day in the Soviet Union, and it's already have been celebrated, so to speak, by G7, and they already stated today that they cannot allow Russia to have the victory in the battlefield in Ukraine. Well, and Russia obviously has its own say on that matter, and evidently they still don't understand what they're dealing with. But hey, we know who those people, we know who runs West into the ground, the combined West, including the United States. And I want to quote my friend Vladimir Turkhan, the colonel of the World General Staff, basically central apparatus of Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, that basically we don't even sweat about NATO. So because obviously militarily G7 is a pathetic showing, and as Scott Ritter today stated, sadly I don't think they allow this to be on YouTube for a long time. They erase it immediately. That basically many people still don't get it, that basically Ukraine is not fighting with something which is equal to it. It fights with about 5-7% of military capability of the superpower, which is obviously using its proxy in LNR, which does the bulk of the fighting on the ground. But obviously the situation develops quite nicely there, and as I already stated about the timing, there was no really any timetable set up for that. The main objective was always the physical annihilation of the Ukrainian war-making capability, which involves obviously military-industrial complex, and which is pretty much actually destroyed by now, and of course its her armed forces. But we'll talk about this later. But let me put it this way: I already encountered it not for once, and this thing persists constantly, especially by those dopamine or what have you, this hormone of happiness, dopamine dependent junkies, adrenaline junkies, also gamers and mom basement, military strategists, all those military analysts like famous Yuri Podolyaka, who's not really an analyst of anything, or Mr. Roshan, known as Colonel Kasar, what have you. The internet is now filled with those analysts, and they always comment on all those minutiae, like, oh my god, they moved this platoon there, they, withdrew from this hamlet, oh my gosh, it's a strategic something. No, it is not. It's just basically a demonstration of the ignorance, military ignorance of people who try to come up with this so to speak, analysis. But of course, there is another thing which is now there, that, oh my god, Russian general staff made a huge mistake and they never anticipated that, the toughness of this resistance and, of the VSU and things of this nature. Well, let me get on it a little bit. And again, I am going to be talking a little bit about what actual military planning is and how the wars are actually fought, and not on the tactical level, however important it is. Make no mistake, the tactics actually, as was described by one of the Russian military thinkers, or Soviet military thinkers, was the system of the measures basically to allow the unit or subunit to fight the fire battle. Well, there is a Russian word for it called boy, have nothing to do with the boys. I mean, it's boy, which literally means basically beating anybody, So, but obviously, boy is a kind of subset of the much larger thing of the сражение, which is of course battle, But the whole idea of the boy, or this firefight or what have you, is the most effective use of the human resources and of the tactical qualities or technical qualities and properties of your weapon systems, which you have them. And I'm not going to go into this famous, AK-47, M16, dichotomy. And no, we're not going to be going there, although it's one of the kind of fundamental principles of the tactics. But we're going to go into how the actual staffs do the war. And believe me, staffs do the war, they plan it, and be that staff of battalion or let alone staff of brigade division, let alone the general staff. And here let me show you something which is of course completely absent from all those amateurs who love to draw those circles and arrows on the maps, and they love to see this thingy, like this famous scheme of the, battalion on the offense. Oh my goodness, look at this. So many wonderful figures, and you can see yourself the depth of the, and width of how the battalion, motorized rifle battalion attacks something, and there you go. So they come up with all those, they shoot this, MLRS, and it hits this and that, and so they love to discuss it, and then even inevitably they go and slide into the military porn, which is inevitable. It's the end result of all this kind of amateur warfaring, and people who, even maybe those people who still fought in the actual combat, but they still think that, okay, because I know how the squad operates, and even how I know how the company, behaves when it's in the offense or defense, then I know how it works. No, you don't. Unless, of course, you graduated the proper military academy, then war college, and let alone Academy of the General Staff, where you could have seen how things are done and how they are planned. And that's where we're going now to the actual decision-making process. You may say, decision-making process, what is this? Well, anybody starting from some low-level NCO on the level of, let's say, squad or 2 squads, let alone platoon commander on the level of the junior officer, but then, of course, let alone battalion commander or brigade commander or front or army group commander, they make a decision. How they make a decision? It's not like this, let's push this, motor rifle battalion, in the offense and see what happens. No, this is not how it's done. Even the low tactical level officer, he has to come up with the decision which has to be presented and justified on map, on some kind of the iPad, what have you, in the modern net-centric warfare paradigm. They use those, pads, and they use them extensively. You can see actually the use of those pads on those rare videos of Russian army, not Elden Air Forces, but Russian army fighting in Ukraine. And that's how decision is made. How it is made, wow, that's the whole other story. I know, I wrote a number of the commanding decision. I commanded tactical units, before I went into the, and was the executive officer on the staff of the separate brigade of the ships, or the border guards, coast guard, basically. And decision making is a very complex thing. And the higher you go, the more complex this decision making becomes. And then once you get to the brigade level, oh my gosh, that is a serious, in fact, damn serious business. And I want to show you, for example, a very remarkable table, basically. It is from the famous, and you can look it up if you need to, a famous book by Lester Grau and Charles Bartels. And I have my special accounts to settle with Charles Bartels about his net-centric warfare and Russian military reform issue, but that's separate affair altogether. But here's the thing. if you look at actually at this approximation of the Russian military decision-making process, which goes, I mean, from the top bottom, it's kind of similar. It's obviously changes the more you go from the, let's say, general staff level to the level of, let's say, obviously not platoon, but let's say a level of company. But the issue is pretty much the same. And look at actually what is underscored there, and which also fits really well in this mythology about Russians being surprised, like, oh my gosh, VSU decided to fight, and Russians thought that they will have the easy ride there, and then suddenly they were shocked. And I spoke about this when I was mentioning Vladislav Shurigin and his interview with one of the Marine Brigade commander in Russian Marines, actually, who said we were surprised by the brainwash. He didn't say they were surprised by tactically or operationally, but many people don't understand the difference. Yeah, you could be surprised in human terms, like, oh my God, they are that brainwashed, and believe me, VSU are that brainwashed, as is the local population. But this is not how planning and war works. It's not like you go into and you are surprised into the stupor and then you cannot do anything. No. You just turn your setups. You change your settings. You go from plan A to plan B. And if you look attentively at especially step 3, staff verification, and especially the key inputs, you can see already that from the get-go there goes the correlation of forces and means analysis from high headquarters you've provided. That's what general staffs usually are, or army staffs are, and they provide it and draw it, or basically trickle it down to tactical units, from operational tactical to tactical units. And as you can see yourself, that thing, correlation of forces and means analysis, and that's a whole other story what it is. It's not just about the basically artillery, weapons, and number of people. Moral, psychological issues are dramatically involved in there. Believe me, there are psychological officers who deal with that. But then guess what it is? As you can see yourself on the third step, in the red frame, you have what? Mathematical verification. And we'll talk about this mathematical verification because this is what they teach you in military academies, and that's what you do as an officer. And you start from the simple things to the, once you graduate into the more higher level officer positions or billets, for example, the mathematics becomes more complex and you get more means, starting from the pretty advanced computers on which you develop this mathematical verification or mathematical modeling. In United States Army it is called wargaming. Russians call it, well, it is the wargaming too, essentially, but yeah, it's a lot of math, and I mean a lot, and some of it, especially modeling, is very complex. And of course the foundation of it all, if you look at it, is going to be obviously the attrition model, developed by the two great minds, one of them Russian engineer Osipov, and the other British engineer Lanchester, concurrently. Well, actually Osipov was the first one to publish it in Russia, but Lanchester almost arrived to this almost concurrently with Osipov. So in the West, traditionally they threw away Osipov and they know it as Lanchester, but we'll talk about this more. But look at this. Once you begin to do the mathematical verification, in preparation for the combat, look what is underlined with the red lines in the step 5, preparation for the combat. What do you see there? High level contingency options, contingency mission considerations, coordinations. Yes, guys, before you go to war, you don't have one plan. You have many of them, and with the modern computers, with the modern modeling of the combat, believe me, you can immediately basically pull up whatever you need, and you will start act accordingly with the basically change on the run. And that's why when people say that, oh my God, the Russian military wasn't prepared for that, it's risible. It's literally, I mean, it's hilarious. Then people who say that, they don't have no clue what they are talking about. Because in the modern combat, even in the 80s, or even in the 90s. You already had several contingencies. That is why it's called contingency planning. And if you have your dial at 9, if need to be, you go to 10 in a little bit different mode, and then eventually if need to be, you go to 11, and then you do whatever you need to do. That is why modern military is never surprised. It could be tactically surprised somewhat with something that, oh yeah, we got the defensive stubbornness and steadfastness of the troops of the enemy here, but it's fine. Let's move, let's use the other means to kind of address the issue or reduce it to zero. And guess what? This is exactly how it is done. There's no any other way about it. And that's how real modern militaries operate. That is why, for example, I can give you only one military which was tactically and operationally stunned. It was U.S. Army in the first Gulf War. They didn't expect the Arabs to be that inept and that unprepared to fight. For those who doubt my words, you guys better start looking now at the studies of the first Gulf War, to the fact that even American officers, including famous Douglas MacGregor, who was the guy who was running this Easting 733 battle, who were surprised by the fact that Iraqis didn't even put their tanks in the same kind of dugouts. So there you go. There was a Turkish shoot, basically. So, and that is why one of the other American generals stated absolutely correctly that the worst thing which could have happened to us in 1991 was the ease with which we were able to accumulate forces for half a year uninterrupted and then easily defeat the basically inept and backward army. That was the tragedy, essentially. So, but as you can see yourself, contingency is the part of the planning. You basically plan for any kind of contingency, including the fact that, well, I won't say that, let's say VSU gets Godzilla on its side, but who knows, maybe there are some plans, contingency planning in general stuff, which even involve Godzilla and aliens. Oh, I'm pretty sure aliens are involved in some way or another in some planning. So, that's the thing which basically pardon me, demolishes any speculation on the matter of a Russian army, Russian forces being surprised, especially when you consider the fact that there are only two nations in the world, United States and Russia, who have the most outstanding intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance complex, including both ground and satellite assets. So Russians knew that NATO was involved for 8 years in preparing VSU, and everybody saw physically, visually, in radio diapason, radar scanning, infrared, ultraviolet, what have you, seeing how it was being built up. So yeah, there is no surprise. The only thing which was not even surprise per se, albeit this Marine colonel from who was giving the interview to Vladislav Shurigin, he was surprised by the fact, how brainwashed their population is. But then again, 8 years. So, but if you ask me, what is this, mathematical verification, so what is this? Well, let me give you the way it looks. It's a classic Osipov Lanchester model, which is basically attrition model. That's how you fight the wars. You have to kill the enemy, really. If you come down to just to make basically most simple thing, you have to annihilate the enemy. That's what is the war is about. You compel your enemy to do your will in quoting Clausewitz, by means of kicking ass by your enemy and kicking ass of your enemy. And kicking the ass of your enemy is obviously what is annihilation of its personnel and its technology, its hardware. So, and as you can see yourself, this is the system of the simplest differential equations with the separable variables, which is, of course, the correlation of the losses between the forces A and B, with alpha and beta being the permanent constants of the rate of the attrition. Obviously, it's a very simple form. It's used merely to kind of get people involved into this. serious attrition business and to get them acquainted with a little bit of the simplest differential equations of this nature with the separable variables. But of course, in reality, this Lanchester thing comes down to this form. And this form is already somewhat different because, as you can see yourself, you still have this correlation of the forces, or you can say x and y. And if you look at the coefficients, you can see that A and E, those coefficients on both, they respectively define the velocity or rate of the non-combat losses of the forces. Then, of course, we have C and G. These are coefficients or rates which define the combat losses. And, of course, D and H, these are the numbers of the either approaching plus arriving or departing, retreating minus reserves. So as you can see yourself, even in this form, it already begins to look kind of like, yeah, it's a little bit complex. Well, guess what? Once it goes into the real combat models, my gosh, it's a high-level mathematics. You need to know all those Gaussian distributions. You will need all those Poissons. You will need all those integrals. And that's what they teach you in the military academies. They teach you how the war fought based on the modern means of the warfare and how those command decisions are made. And as I already stated, modern armies, be that US Army or be that Russian Army, they have no surprises for the most part. Except, of course, we are talking about professionals. But if you talk about political people, in the West especially, they do have surprises all the time because for the most part they are incompetent, they are badly educated, and they are very uncultured people. They think about warfare from the point of view of Hollywood. And as General Latif of DARPA, and he is a PhD in physics actually, apart from being Major General and being one of the major forces in DARPA. And he as he stated in his Future War book, he says that basically everything American public knows about the warfare, including its political elites, is from Hollywood, from entertainment industry. So when you begin to explain to people how Salvo model works, for example, and how you really make a decision, as I already stated to you, what goes into the making this decision before you say go for the combat, they don't understand that people go to academies and study and serve for years, sometimes decades, until they become any good at it. And even that is not guaranteed. You're still going to get a lot of people who are just failures, academic and military. Hey, look at the modern American generals, abusing their public attention on the Fox or CNN or what have you. It's a sophomoric BS. These people parade themselves as ignoramuses. And that is why they cannot accept the fact that basically, well, Russia already won the war. It's just a matter of how the Ukraine will be basically split. And that's the whole other thing. But in terms of when they think that they can not allow Russia to win the war in the battlefield in Ukraine, those people need to get themselves into normal education. Although I think so, it's already too late for them anyhow. So and they have to admit that basically by now the catastrophe already happened to the Ukrainian army, and you can see visuals of this already. Even Ukraine cannot deny this anymore, And so if they think that they're going to be supplying more weapons and somehow those more weapons will do any good, no, it will not do any good. It will change nothing whatsoever. It just will kill more Ukrainians, that's for sure. I don't think so it's going to kill that many Russians anyway. And actually the propaganda cycle is beginning already to kind of, stutter a little bit. You can feel it, but reality is, of course, and especially with the fall of Popasnaya, and Russia just, tightening this noose around VSU's neck in Donbass, in the eastern Ukraine. So what are you going to do? Well, as I already stated, it's now the matter of political posturing, it's the matter of how or if, or how actually, no, and when, not if even, Poland will take some of the Galicia, what Hungary is planning, things of this nature. But yeah, it's pretty much over. But some fighting still left. But you see at the state of Ukrainian military, it's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. It's completely demoralized. Many brigade commanders are already taken prisoners of war, and you can look it up. It's everywhere, all over the news, all over the YouTube. So you just cannot deny this anymore. It's just a matter of wrapping this thing up and then thinking the military political consequences of that and how the Nazification will be proceeding. How much fighting is left? I don't know. Probably another few weeks, But point is just, I don't know. I do not wish those Ukrainian soldiers who definitely in totally demoralized state and hungry, and some of them are downright emaciated. I don't wish them death, But the operation has to be concluded in military terms, and then it has to continue in terms of military political settlements and, of course, in terms of the denazification. But if anybody thinks that by looking at the map, and again, a real map and a real plan are known in only one place, actually, it's in Moscow. And in those subsidiaries of Moscow who do actual fighting. Nobody will produce a real plan or real map. But people still believe this. Okay, hey, if they want to, I'm not that kind of guy. I cannot say that, oh, I know, I can see how it develops. No, I just saying, yeah, I don't know. I can only comment on actually what happens de facto, what we know and is verified. And I know how the military decisions are made, decisions on the operations. It's a complex issue. It requires a lot of education. It requires a lot of mathematics, physics. It requires a lot of weapons integrations. It requires a lot of psychology and morale and a lot of things. And of course, knowledge of history. So, but this is what I wanted to talk about today and just demonstrate to you some of the very few points or very few inputs and outputs which go in and out into all this thing. And when you say to me that general staff in Moscow didn't expect this or that, oh, police people, I mean, that's why it's called contingency planning, and that's how decisions are made. And as per mathematics, you see, I was going to talk about mathematics for a longer time before, but then, of course, this whole Ukrainian situation interfered, and I had to kind of go back and do my thing, my talking about the military operation, explaining what little I know about the real events there. So, but hopefully, things will kind of calm down, and of course, we're going to laugh. We're already laughing at the way the G7 tries to not allow Russia to get military victory in the field, which is reasonable. So, and we'll get back to real mathematics and real combat models and how it is all calculated and how it is all fought. So, what can I say? It's May 9th, day of victory coming for Russians. Soviet people lost 27 million people fighting the best what Europe ever produced in terms of its military and economic power. Out of those 27 million, 17 million were civilians. And many of my relatives of my wife, simply vanished, simply perished in all this calamity. One of my grandparents actually was killed in 1941, summer 1941 in Donbass. So it's a very special affair for Russians, and it's incredibly important. That is why the United States and the West in general was in the business of rewriting this for a long time, because they cannot allow this fundamental event which reshaped our world and world history to be credited to Russians. And in this particular case, what can I say? My congratulations to you guys, and wishing you a wonderful Victory Day, and just, keep the memory of those heroes, including Allied heroes, Western Allied heroes, people who died at the Omaha Beach and, who fought in Ardennes and did what they could, to help Soviet Union to deal with this calamity. Just keep them in mind, just some people who are faithing can say a little bit prayer. So, and my congratulations with this, and, just watch the parade from Moscow. So that was my talk to you today, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.